Everybody, how's it going? So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to, yes, that's right, it's time for Coffee Talk. So we will be having a discussion about what's going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news, sharing a little bit of dialogue in the live portion. And of course, if you are listening somewhere and wanted to join the live portion, you can find it Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. And that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And that is at Coffee Talk Chat, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. As I am joined here today by the new guy. He doesn't have a name yet. Here he is. New guy with no name. This is the cat that got dropped off at my house because, yeah, I'm the cat guy, apparently. I'm the cat guy. Am I the cat guy now? Is that who I am? And I do, of course, read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those who are listening and not able to see so that they can keep up with the conversation. And I'll go ahead and I'll greet some of the people that are joining us here today so far. I see Jane is here. What's that? Dragon is here. New York Patriot. Sean. Fluke Man. What Sean thinks it is, or I'm sorry, Patriot thinks his name should be Batman. He's trying to look at the screen. That's why he keeps twisting his head. Rambunctious little guy. His paws are healing. You can see his little, you can't see. He has those scabs on both of his paws because he was burned before he got here. Helter is here. Glad you could make it today. As we get ready to dive into the world of the ridiculous, which is the world we live in, unfortunately. And I will start us off, and this is the big story, apparently. The big story is the Mexican cartels. Associated Press article, 24 people charged in money laundering scheme involving Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, according to prosecutors. And here you see some packages, some kind of narcotics in the back of a pickup truck. And they will tell you what that is. It says 5-year investigation by U.S. officials has uncovered a complex partnership between one of Mexico's most notorious drug cartels and Chinese underground banking groups in the U.S. that laundered money from the sale of fentanyl, cocaine, and other drugs, according to federal prosecutors. Associates of the powerful Sinaloa cartel conspired with Chinese groups to cover up more than $50 million in drug profits, much of which was processed in the Los Angeles area, the prosecutors said in a news release. And here is a picture of some cash. I don't know if that's their cash or whatever. I would love to find this in a garbage bag somewhere. I wouldn't tell anybody but my wife. I really wouldn't. 24 people have been charged. Chinese and Mexican law enforcement helped arrest fugitives who fled the United States after they were initially charged last year. This investigation shows that the Sinaloa cartel has entered into a new criminal partnership with Chinese nationals who launder money for the cartels. Drug Enforcement Administration official Ann Milgram said at a news conference. And I got some interesting points to make about this. I'll get to it in a minute. The lead defendant is Edgar Joel Martinez Reyes, 45, of East Los Angeles, who prosecutors said had managed couriers who pick up drug cash in the Los Angeles area. Martinez Reyes partnered with the leaders of the Chinese money launderers and traveled with him to Mexico to negotiate contracts with the cartels, according to authorities. All right. It says prosecutors say the scheme relied on the huge demand for U.S. currency from wealthy Chinese nationals who are prohibited by their government's capital flight restrictions from transferring more than $50,000 per year out of China. And yeah, they have that kind of restriction on their people. That's how they keep, because remember some years ago, a lot of Chinese millionaires, and that was after That was after Hong Kong was transferred back. A lot of Chinese millionaires bailed. Many of them ended up in Canada. Many of them ended up in Canada. Now, here's my point about this. This is a 5-year investigation, okay, to arrest 24 people, Chinese and Mexican, because of 50 million that was laundered. 50 million in 5 years for one of the largest cartels in South America, that's a multi-billion-dollar operation, is peanuts. Isn't that right, buddy? Isn't that right? I'll give you another look at him. Isn't he a sweetheart? Furthermore, I bet you after 5 years of cooperation between American and Mexican officials, plus investigators in China, because we had investigators in China as well, I bet you it cost more than $50 million to conduct this investigation over the course of 5 years. Was it really worth it? I mean, I've got to ask the question. I've got to ask, was it really worth it? Or is this a token? Is this a token because a 5-year investigation because of 50 million in laundering from a multi-billion-dollar cartel? It really doesn't add up to much. I'm sorry, it really doesn't. To me, that sounds like a failure. Okay, you arrested 24 people. Congratulations. You managed to arrest 24 people. I suppose that's good. That doesn't sound like it's a very big operation. 10 million a year in laundering, basically. Did I read something wrong? 10 million a year in laundering. And where's that money? I mean, they managed to confiscate some cash there and some drugs. So unless those drugs fall through the cracks instead of being incinerated, at the very least, they'll be kept off the streets, I guess. Did I miss something? It feels to me, and they're blowing this up in the media. Everybody's covering that story. Everybody is talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, this sounds like a plant story. This sounds like you're patting yourselves on the back and acting like, oh, we're stopping fentanyl from getting into the United States and we stopped this laundering operation. It's like, but you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar operation. You got 50 million in 5 years, 50 million worth in 5 years, and you stopped that. What about the other 100 or so operations that are going? It seems to me like it would have cost them more to investigate than anything. Fluke Man says he'd be tempted to take the money too, but if it belongs to someone through honest work, I'd have to return it. If it belonged to a drug dealer, somebody probably find my body in the forest somewhere. Like in No Country for Old Men. They did that in No Country for Old Men. The guy found the case full of money, but he never bothered to check the case, and it had a tracking device in it so that that hitman was following him the whole time. And Dragon says, meanwhile, the politicians and law enforcement were laundering the money used in the investigation. That could be. That could be. You might recall, again, since this took place in California, we covered the story like a couple of years back, actually. It's been a while. And I can never remember the guy's name. He was a congressman that was huge anti-gun. He was huge in the anti-gun lobbying arena. And it turns out he was an international drug or gun trafficker. He was funneling guns in and out of the United States for years. So his lobbying against guns was a cover for his illegal operations. I can't remember the guy's name. He was a California congressman. Thank you. New York Patriot said Senator Leland Yee. Thank you, that New York Patriot. I can't remember everything. I try. Boy, you are rambunctious today. He is bouncing all over the place, little guy here. As long as you don't step on the keyboard, because that'll cause me a lot of problems. Restream is already wonky enough. But they are really blowing this up in the media. Really blowing this up in the media. Come here. He's putting on a lot of weight very quickly too, but he's being very well fed and cared for, so that's to be expected. That's to be expected. Help, before I move on here, I'll catch a couple more comments. Helter says police departments and government agencies don't like to work together because they want to seize as much assets as possible and not have to share it. Asset forfeiture. That the drugs, legally, the drugs are supposed to be incinerated, but the cash goes to the city, the county, whoever, if in my understanding. And New York Patriot says he was working with some other drug kingpin named Shrimpy or something like that. Yeah, he was in the Philippines or something, right? And he was moving guns back and forth in and out of the United States. And I see Mars is here, as well as Puck. I don't know if you saw a little guy. He's under me somewhere. I was showing him off earlier because he's bouncing all over the room being rambunctious. Now, the other big story that they're really blowing up in the media, and it's embarrassing, actually. It's very embarrassing, is the cheap fake. Is the whole cheap fake with Biden and the cover-up that's going on with the media and with the White House press secretary trying to pretend like the videos of Biden freezing and looking confused are being faked somehow. And they're calling it cheap faking. And we talked about this the last couple of days, and I've shown video clips. I've shown the video clips of him at the fundraiser. I show the video clip of him at the G7 summit. And the media is really on board with following the narrative that those videos are faked somehow. And this is The Hill. Cheap fake Biden videos burst into national spotlight. It says White House officials are aggressively pushing back against a wave of cheap fake videos that purportedly show President Biden being confused or meandering, and which question his mental and physical fitness ahead of the election. The rise of the videos, which do not use artificial intelligence but are cropped or edited in a way that is misleading, marks the latest instance of how technology may be used deceptively during the 2024 campaign. And you've all seen this. I've shown the entire clip yesterday. There was no zooming or editing when Obama had to take his wrist and lead him off stage. There was no cropping or editing or close-ups done. With the film footage of the Prime Minister of Italy having to take Biden's arm and turn him around and lead him back to where the various world leaders were standing watching the skydiving, because he turned around and walked away and was standing in the middle of the damn field. That video was not edited. There was no close-ups or anything done. He almost walked out of the shot and she went and got him. You can't fake that. So, and they're trying to convince us that these are faked. And it's not like in the digital age, you can't find the original video and make your own decision, use your own discernment. Back to the article here. One viral clip, which was first shared by a Republican National Committee account, depicts Biden struggling to sit down at a D-Day ceremony in a chair that critics claim didn't exist, but the clip cuts off before Biden takes his seat. They didn't cut that. I saw that one also. That's the one where people think Biden was crapping himself. I don't know if he was or not, but he was reaching for a chair and Jill stood him up. They edited that away at that event. They cut away to another shot at that event because he kept trying to sit. There was a chair, but it wasn't near him. It was too far away to be of any use. And I guess that to save him further embarrassment, they switched to another camera angle really quickly. The RNC didn't do that. Another clip came from Biden's recent trip to Italy for the Group of Seven or G7 meeting when he and other world leaders watched a skydiving demonstration. A cropped version of the video seemed to show Biden wandering off before the Italian prime minister nudges him back towards the group. But the fuller angle makes it clear Biden was gesturing towards a parachutist who had just landed. The New York Post made the incident the centerpiece of its front page the next day with the headline, "Meander in Chief." And we showed that clip in its entirety yesterday, unedited, without cutting away. He did walk away from that group, and she did walk over to him and take his arm and bring him back. But the media is all on board with this, trying to convince you that you did not see what you saw. Oh, New York Patriot says he's got to cut it short. Well, sorry to hear that. Mara says, speaking of artificial intelligence, many celebrities are against it because they have no rights to their faces and likeness. That was done in a comic book years ago. I forget who it was. It was from PC Comics, and they had scanned a woman. This is in the 80s. They scanned a woman to use her likeness, but then she lost the rights to her own face, and she had to have cosmetic surgery. Dragon says if the videos were manipulated, the White House should be able to produce the authentic video. That should be very easy to produce. Exactly. Kitty, get out of the cables. Come here. Sorry, kitty distraction. Very, very rambunctious little boy today. But yeah, they should be able to demonstrate through their own video footage. Here he is again, because he is all over the place. You see him biting my hand. Well, now he's biting my fingers. He's not biting hard. He's just being playful because that's what they do. I've got his little toy. Come on. Go get that. But they were manipulated after the fact. We've seen the raw footage, and I've shown the raw footage already on this channel. But they're really pushing it hard. The White House is pushing it, and they are also the news agencies are all on board with this, trying to convince people that they were cropped and cut and spliced together somehow. This is CBS News is on board with this. And CBS crops it. I'll show a clip of CBS News really quickly just to make the point. I think they cropped it. But all these news agencies, they're back to kissing Biden's ass and pretending like he's not out of his mind.
You've probably heard of deep fakes, but just last week, as President Biden was at the G7 summit in Italy, cheap fake clips went viral on social media and were picked up by some news outlets. Take a look at this clip, for example. It shows Biden and other world leaders.
And I will stop it right there, because you can see he's already not watching and starting to wander off.
Watching a skydiving demonstration.
There he goes.
Before the president is seen walking away and looking in another direction. Outlets claimed that he was sort of just aimlessly wandering away. The clip amassed millions of views within just a few hours, when actually if you widen out, you can see that he was within just a few hours.
Now CBS just cropped this, and this is what what I noticed most of all, and I'll open that up. For those of you who can see, take a close look at his expression and how confused he looks. You know, he's not looking like that because it's bright outside or something. Everybody else's face felt relatively normal, and he looks very confused. They're telling us that other people cropped these images, but then they show us an image that they cut, CBS, and in the video clip, he still walks off, and the Italian prime minister had to go and grab him and bring him back and center him there. I mean, seriously. Fluke Man says G7 is the group of first world leaders wants to end poverty in Africa. Correct me if I'm wrong. 20 years ago it was G20, and then it was G8, and now G7. Yeah, they're not going to end poverty in Africa or anywhere else. Nobody will. Nobody will. You can't end poverty. Jesus said, Yeshua, the poor will all be with you always. So you're not just going to end it. Puck says he needs catnip. He needs something. Talking about the kitten that's tearing around underneath me here. Mars says the movie Wag the Dog was an eye opener. And Jane says, where's First Lady Jill? Probably still comforting their son, who was found guilty, but still walked out of the courthouse. He's not sitting in jail, is he? He's not sitting in jail, is he, Hunter? No, he's not sitting in jail. He walked out of that courthouse. But Mommy's probably still holding his hand, patting him on the back, telling him everything's going to be all right. I just think it's really interesting how all these news agencies, all of a sudden the media is back on Biden's side again after they've been trashing him for the last 2 years, really. Because I was kind of surprised. I mean, they kissed his ass big time while he was running. Then when he's not running, when he is president, they turned on him and they started making fun of him all the time. Now they're back to kissing his ass again, as you can plainly see. So, yeah, what's up with that? What is up with that? But there's nothing misleading there. Again, I mean, we're in a digital age. You can find the initial footage, the original footage, pretty easily. You know, I showed some clips yesterday and the day before. You can find them yourself without any difficulty, and you can discern whether or not they've been cropped or not. He turned on the other computer. The monitor back there just went on. Oh my goodness. He is a bundle. And Monkey is here. Glad you could make it today. So we're rounding off here talking about Jumpin' Joe Biden. Joggin' Joe. That's what they should call him. He does his little Joe jog where he shuffles and then he stops and looks like he's out of breath. And Jane says Biden looks like he has dementia in the pictures. Yeah, he looks very confused. He really does look very confused. And, I've worked in mental health. I've seen that look. That's the kind of look that I've seen on people that are very heavily medicated. I don't know if he is or not, but that's the impression that you get. Despite the fact of whether or not he's physically or mentally competent enough to do the job, I don't like how he does the job anyways. I don't like how he does the job. I think he's done a terrible job. I think the country is in worse shape than when he started, and that's something to consider. That's something to consider. People may not like Trump very much, and that's fine. They're entitled to their opinion. But the situation in the United States was better when Trump was still in office. When he was still in office. And there is some legitimacy to the claims that something fishy went on that caused him to lose the election. I don't blame him. I don't blame him for questioning that, especially since because he questioned it, they're going to try to take him to court in Fulton County. And Puck says more countries are joining BRICS. Yeah, those countries can't get along, though. We'll see how that works out. Now, this is an article I thought was interesting because while we have all of these places now trying to get churches to take in migrants, to take in illegal immigrants and shelter them, we read that article a few weeks ago telling them, oh, if you've got a spare room that's being used for daycare or for a food pantry or something like that, or for Bible study, to pack it up and allow migrants to shelter there. And I thought that was very offensive. And I see Tom is here, as well as Christos. And Christos says America is being played by both sides. Of course they are. This is why I found that very offensive, because, and this is something else we've talked about before, Fox News article Colorado town faces religious liberty lawsuit after cracking down on a church's shelter ministry for the homeless. Because, a church is not allowed to help homeless people in most communities, and they will be hit with fines. They'll be hit with fines for it. Leadership can be arrested for it. You can't help the homeless. I've talked about the guy before, the pastor in Florida, who's been arrested several times for feeding the homeless. The guy's in his 80s. He's in his 80s, pastor in Florida, because it's illegal to give food to homeless people there, unless you're like a state authorized shelter or food soup kitchen, state authorized soup kitchen. But God forbid somebody wants to do an outreach. It's illegal here. It's illegal in the Atlanta area. They don't enforce it as badly, but it is illegal. And now we got this Colorado church. It says Colorado church filed a federal lawsuit against the town of Castle Rock after local officials allegedly cracked down on their use of RVs to shelter members of the local homeless population, according to a May press release from First Liberty Institute. Attorney Jeremy Diss, senior counsel of the organization, said the crackdown violates the church's First Amendment right to religious liberties. Every law in this country is subject to the Constitution. Yeah, sure it is. And we have said that the government has to act very carefully if any of its laws and its rules run up against the free exercise of religion in federal law. Has taken that even a step further to say when it comes to land use regulations, when a country or a county party can or can't do something on your property, well, they're going to have to demonstrate that they are pursuing a very compelling justification for shutting down that religious activity, he tells Fox News Digital. Quote again here, it says, it's obviously something that is harming no one. It's on the back of the property. It's helping everyone. It's a very minimal ministry, meaning that there has been less than 10 people or so. They've gone through that in a period of 5 to 8 years. So I just don't quite understand why the city has been so bent on preventing this church from doing the right thing. They should be supporting the church rather than trying to stop their ministries. And we've seen this all over the country with ministries. If they try to help the homeless, if they try to shelter the homeless, they get in trouble. But at the same time, they want these churches to help illegal immigrants. Once again, putting immigrants ahead of our own citizens, which no other country other than a Western country, let's put it that way, would do. Because the UK is doing this, Spain is doing this, Australia, Canada are doing this. They're putting illegal immigrants ahead of their own citizens. And they're sooner or later, that's going to come to a boil and it's going to be a mess. Fluke Man says Biden, Obama, Hillary, or Bill Clinton for president if you had to choose one. I'm not even going to talk about that. Christos says Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon spells MAGA to me. Some crypto globalist, pharmaceutical salesman who supports our companies overseas. Jane says she was living in California in 2015. They said they would give big tax write-offs if you put a structure up to help the homeless. And Puck says church helping the homeless is competition for ineffective government programs. Yeah, because again, it's the migrant industrial complex now. Lots and lots of money, billions and billions of dollars, no contract bids, sweet deals. And they're paying insane amounts of money to these organizations, to caterers, to shelters, to hotels, to other organizations. Again, no contract bidding. Your tax dollars. There's something shady going on. But this to me is very offensive. Leave the church the hell alone. Let them shelter people if they want to. They've obviously got something going on here. It says that their rear parking lot is a 54-acre property. That's pretty freaking big. It's big enough. and that they got a couple of trailers back there that they put homeless people in to help them transition. It's not like they're just getting bums off the street, okay? And that is what a church should be doing, is some type of like physical hands-on ministry in their own community, not digging a well in the Congo, okay? Not promoting some politician, but doing something right there in the church. Doing something right there in the church. And they get their teeth kicked in for it. Not just this place, but lots of churches all across the country are abused by local governments for doing this. Again, citing the because I heard that story a lot. I haven't heard about him for a while, but that one Florida pastor has been arrested many times. And I always think about it because I remember seeing the video clips of the sheriff's deputies saying, well, we really hate to do it because he's only trying to help people, but you're still arresting him, aren't you, jackass? Which is the difference between being a police officer or a sheriff and deputy in this case and being law enforcement. Because you may be enforcing laws that are unethical, immoral, or don't make any damn sense. And to me, that's unethical. Let the guy walk around and give people sandwiches if he wants to. He's in his 80s. He's not hurting anybody. Is it really hurting anybody that much? But yeah, they'll crack down on that. But I bet you other crimes will slip right under the radar, fall right through the cracks, like nothing happened. Oh man, yeah, get me going. Why don't you? Get me going. Tom says, with the beard, you look like a Navy SEAL. Don't tell anybody. I'm not allowed to talk about that stuff. Anyways, I was going actually for Charlton Heston's Moses from the Ten Commandments there. And then when people don't live like by the law, they can die by it. And I'll throw stone tablets at everybody. Something here about the IRS. This is a Business Insider article. Another pet peeve of mine, because I've tangled with the IRS in the past, and they are ruthless, and they have no oversight. It says the door is slamming shut on a $50 billion tax loophole used by the super rich. The U.S. Treasury and IRS are closing a tax loophole used by the uber wealthy. They're cracking down on opaque business structures that inflate deductions. That's not exactly true, but I'll explain. The proposed regulations could generate $50 billion in new tax revenue. The Treasury and IRS proposed new tax regulations Monday targeting uber wealthy that they say could result in $50 billion in new tax revenue over the next decade. The initiative seeks to crack down on related party basis shifting transactions or the use of opaque business structures that inflate tax deductions. The department said an example of that is when a single company operating as different legal entities shifts the tax basis from a property that doesn't generate deductions to one that does. These kinds of tax loopholes contribute to $160 billion in annual tax gaps among the top 1% of filers, according to the Treasury. Filings from pass-through businesses with more than $10 million in assets increased 70% from 2010 to 2019. And audits fell from 3.8 to 0.1 over the same period. The multi-stage initiative follows a year of research, the Treasury said, and proposes several new rules, including increasing reporting for basis shifting transactions. Treasury and IRS are focused on addressing high-end tax abuse from all angles, according to Secretary Janet Yellen, noting resources from the President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act have helped combat long-standing abuses. Yeah, if it's a loophole, and they always call it a loophole when they want to make it sound bad, okay? And Kimberly is here. Kimberly says they're late to the party. That's okay. And Fluke Man, talking about the previous subject, says instead of arresting an 80-year-old pastor, they could just inform the homeless not to gather into a group more than 3 people, don't drink, and many other activities that would cause them to get into trouble. I don't know. But yeah, it's easier to put an 81, 82-year-old man in jail, apparently. Free sandwich, anyone? I think not. And Puck says the result will be billions of dollars leaving the U.S. Brilliant plan. All right. So you have multiple operations and you want to maximize your deductions. So you shift a charitable donation to one of your businesses that would benefit from it the most. It's perfectly legal. And this is what they're talking about to dumb it down considerably. Shifting it. They call it a loophole to make it sound bad, but a loophole is legal. You're not breaking any rules. You're not twisting anything. You're not doing anything illegal or shady or crooked. It's called a loophole, but it's something that's legal for you to do, that's not widely advertised, because they're hoping no one will be smart enough to take advantage of it. They're hoping that people will be smart enough not to take advantage. Because if you don't know about a rule that might benefit you, you can't use it, and the IRS is not legally obligated to tell you anything, even about your own case. I've been down that road. They won't talk to you, and they don't have to. They don't have to. So that bothers me right there anyway. So they're trying to take away something that's legal for businesses to use. They say it's the uber rich, wealthy 1%, but it will affect everyone else as well. Even people who are not uber wealthy, rich, super rich people. And they're the ones that are really going to get hurt by any changes, quite frankly. Furthermore, instead of, and this is always my big argument with taxes, instead of being more savvy with what you do with the money you take from us, utilizing your resources more effectively, being good stewards of our money, all you ever want to do is take more. We don't want to fix how we screwed everything up. We just want to take more of your money. That'll fix everything, because that's always worked so well in the past. Mismanagement, misappropriation, and misuse of funds versus just taking more money from people. And, again, it's really easy to spend someone else's money, which is all this is. We don't want to fix the damage we've done. We don't want to do our own checks and balances. I haven't really heard about anybody cracking down on out of control government spending since Reagan was in office. Where's it been pursued since Reagan? Honestly, who also cracked down on the IRS. He didn't like him. I don't blame him. I haven't seen anybody go after the IRS or crack down on loose government spending since the Reagan administration. And I remember that. I remember all the fights about that and going up before Congress and trying to get them to explain how the hell it's possible that somebody could have a bill for a $400 hammer, a $1,300 toilet seat. What are you, laundering money? I remember he was pissed. He was pissed. Helter says a good portion of that $50 billion will go to lawyers and financial engineers to find new loopholes. And Dragon says politicians are paying lip service while doing absolutely nothing to reform the tax system. And I've made that argument 100 times. They could operate on half of what they take from us. I guarantee it. I'm convinced they could operate on half of what they take from us if they managed the money efficiently. But they don't do that because they don't have to. No one is going to make them. There is no oversight. There's no oversight in their behavior. No oversight. And I see Brian has made it today. Glad you could make it. And Monkey says, and people crap on him for his Reaganomics. Yeah, you can pick on him for Reaganomics, but things were good in the 80s financially. They were very good. And Puck says they don't think Janet Yellen was hired for expertise, but rather for her willingness to be a figurehead while others called the shots, like Blinken and Pete Buttplug. That's booty juice. Booty juice. That's who that is. But stuff like this always pisses me off. That always pisses me off. Because again, they take our. It's not like, and people say, oh, well, you shouldn't pay your taxes. How can you not? They just take it automatically. You can't stop it. You can't. You can't stop them from taking your tax money. It comes right out of your check. And if they make a mistake, they'll find it. They'll find it and they'll get their money. And they'll charge you fees and penalties and interest that you're not privy to if they made a mistake. I have a lot of issues with them because I've been browbeat by them for over a decade. They started giving me a hard time a long time ago because of an oversight connected to my ex, actually, from way back. And I got stuck with it and been paying for it ever since. I've been threatened by IRS agents. I've gotten intimidating phone calls. I've had them show up at my job. I had one agent ask for a bribe. I can't trust these people. I don't trust them at all. And again, and then, it's like, oh, someone asked for a bribe. You should report them. To who? Who am I going to report that to? How am I going to prove it? Report it to his supervisor, and then they'll turn around and hit me harder? Oh, no. Fluke Man says U.S. has something like 300 million citizens, and they hope not one person would know about loopholes, not just taxes, childcare, home ownership, bills, squatters, etc. Yeah, and again, they don't help you. They don't tell you anything. They don't have to tell you anything. And the only way that you can really get all your ducks in a row and find alleged loopholes is if you have a tax attorney and an accountant. And most people can't afford that. Even small businesses, a lot of them can't afford that. They end up in all kinds of trouble. End up all kinds of trouble, and it's not fair. It's not fair to have a system like this intimidating you, running you down, extorting money from you, threatening you all the time. And one more here, and I'll get to the next subject. Monkey says people in my generation, that's Generation Z, now starting to find out about paying taxes with some breaking down over it. It's like welcome to adulting, working world. And that's funny about that because, not everybody, but most people, I think, they spend their entire childhood rubbing their hands. Oh, I can't wait till I grow up. And I can do whatever the hell I want. And I can go wherever I want. And no one will tell me what to do. And I won't have to answer for anything. And then you grow up and you find out it just gets worse. And then you wish you were a kid again because it was more simple. It's like, oh God, I wish I could go back to when I was like 10 and I had no concept of time. And summer felt like it was like 12 months long. And I could just run around all day and do whatever. I had a rough childhood, but man, it was a lot less stressful than this. It was, and Fluke Man says, does the IRS have a line they do not cross? What if the person has Down syndrome or autism? Would they still fine them? I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I don't think there's a line. But although if you have Down syndrome, you're probably getting SSI checks, which are not taxable. So the IRS wouldn't have anything to do with somebody like that, I don't think. But yeah, as far as I know, I've never seen any leniency from these people. It's a challenge. As some of you may remember when I used to talk about dealing with the tax attorney, because I had to hire a tax attorney to help me at that time. And the tax attorney and the people in his office are former agents, former IRS agents. He said many of the employees were, because they just couldn't deal with the ethics of it anymore. They knew all they were doing was hurting people. Because most people, it's just mistakes. I was trapped in a mistake, and it wasn't even really mine. But, they'll penalize you. They treat everybody the same by treating everybody badly. That's how they have their equality. That's where their equity and equality comes from. We'll treat everybody like shit. We'll grind them all down. And the attorney told me when he got around to his third client committing suicide because they were so overwhelmed and terrified with the penalties and how their lives were destroyed, he couldn't do the job anymore. That's a lot to think about. And I would love to see a statistic. And every once in a while, I look for something. I can't find it. I would love to see a statistic on how many people that are confronted by the IRS that end up killing themselves. And Jane says that they had trouble with TurboTax not processing their taxes in 2021. Yeah, that can be a mess. That can be a mess. But yeah, like I've had bad experiences with it, and I'm not quite out of the woodwork with them either. And they will never leave you alone. They'll never really leave you alone. They're always looming, always looming. As we shift around here to the Daily Mail again, talking about California, and you may have heard about this, that mayor of Oakland, they want to throw her out. They want to fire the mayor of Oakland now. It says hellhole takes drastic action against its progressive mayor. The progressive Democratic lawmaker is the first mayor in the city's history to be up for a recall after a campaign to oust her gained more than 40,000 signatures. In just a year, Thau's incompetence and dishonesty accelerated Oakland's decline, causing long-standing businesses to close and generational families to leave. The Oakland United to Recall Sheng Thao, that's her name, campaign website states, Sheng Thao. Critics are also angry that she missed an opportunity to apply for a $15 million retail theft grant, fired Oakland Police Chief LaRon Armstrong for no cause without appointing a successor, and lost the Oakland A's baseball team. Oh, wow. And here's a shot of Oakland. That's about what Oakland looks like now, which is why they can't hold on to the Oakland A's. It's not the Oakland A's anymore, is it? Yeah, that's Oakland, folks. Just set the whole thing on fire and get it over with. They also accused her of lying about calling a state of emergency to deal with crime waves that are crippling the city. Oakland has been rocked by violent crime in recent months, including murders which have soared from 78 in 2019 to 126 last year. Crime overall increased by 18%, with property crime up 17% and violent crime up 21%. And in the first 4 months of 2024, residential robberies soared by 118% of the same period in the previous year. Staggeringly, one car per every 30 residents was stolen in 2023. That is kind of crazy. The situation has prompted several large corporations to pull out of the city, citing fears for staff safety and the crippling impact of retail theft. And there's Sheng Thao. Sheng Thao, probably a plant for the Chinese government. She's there to help destroy Oakland. Oakland's only In-N-Out burger restaurant in the area closed after 18 years, despite still turning a healthy profit, as customers and staff are unsafe due to soaring crime rates. The local Denny's also shut its doors, while Taco Bell refuses to allow indoor dining amid a spate of incidences. And they go on to name a bunch of other businesses that have shut down or closed or altered their, yeah, look at that. They're not kidding. Here's the Taco Bell. They removed the door. Dining room closed, the sign says. No shit. That's perfect. That's perfect. Helter says it's not just Oakland that needs a recall. The whole state of California needs a recall, from the governor down to the mayors that enabled all these criminals, and on and on and on. Monkey says TurboTax got into some crap over advertising as free tax filing. It is free as long as it's a basic federal filing, but you must still pay for the state filing. So it is misleading, but they all say that. You can file for free, but they mean federal only, as long as it's just a basic filing. Dragon says Oakland needs Batman. Yeah, I know. He doesn't have any buildings high enough to swing from, though. I love that, though. They removed the doors so that you can't even get into the dining room. That's fantastic. You gotta love it. That's very that's some great initiative. Oh man. But yeah, recall election, big deal. So they'll oust they'll oust her. They'll oust the mayor and replace her with who? Someone who's just as bad or worse. You elected this person. You're the idiots. Your city was already screwed. Oakland was already in trouble because of your decisions, because of your lawmakers, and you brought in another one. Big surprise, it got worse. Because why? Because Sheng here, saw how much everyone else got away with and said, shit, why not? Let me lower the bar again. Whose fault is that? Yeah, vote it out. That'll work. That'll fix everything. Just vote your problems away, ladies and gentlemen. Vote your problems away. Tom says an EMP attack, the tax problem will be gone very faster. Yeah, that would be nice. And Kimberly says their daughter and her went to a Waffle House near the Atlanta airport a year ago, and guess what? It was takeout only, a Waffle House. Really? In the Atlanta airport or near the Atlanta airport? There's a lot of Waffle Houses out here. I never even heard of the Waffle House until I went to Kansas, and they only have like a couple. Out here, there's a lot of them, though. I like Waffle House, actually. Although they don't have the lemonade bubbler anymore. They got rid of it. They still have the sweet tea. They used to have the lemonade in the dispenser, but they don't make the lemonade anymore. They give you a bottle of, I can't remember the brand. But I don't want a bottled lemonade. I want fresh lemonade, damn it. And D'Lo is here. Glad you could make it. Thanks for joining us today. And Monkey says Waffle Houses are good for food and entertainment when it comes to the fights. The workers don't F around. I've never seen any kind of violence in a Waffle House. I know it happens, but I've never seen problems like that in a Waffle House. So there you go. But what are you going to do? Another pet peeve of mine coming up here real quick. Another pet peeve of mine, and that is the Department of Education. Department of Education. We're going to go to the Teachers Union. Teachers Union boss here, according to the Tampa Free Press, for black kids not being smart. You'll love this. Teachers Union boss says conservatives don't want black kids to know how to read. Really? Who's teaching them at home, sweetheart? I didn't learn how to read in school. I did not learn how to read at school. I learned how to read at the public library that was up the street from my house. It was 3 blocks from my house on Harvard Avenue in Alston. I don't think it's there anymore. I think it closed. It was on the second floor above Bailey's Drugstore. The whole second floor of that office building was the Alston Public Library, and I just liked to read, and I improved and improved and improved. Jane says poor teachers got some stress from students and management, and I'll put this up from All People here really quick. And I'll read the article. It says the president of the Chicago Teachers Union claimed during a radio interview that aired Sunday that conservatives don't want black children to learn how to read. Stacey Davis Gates made an appearance on WBBM to defend the union's contract demands. Gates claims that conservatives who expressed criticism of the demands don't even want black children to be able to read. So you can't get the extra money that you want. So you think. And I hate how they always try to turn it around and pretend like they're helping children. They don't give a shit about these kids. They don't care. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. Remember, these same conservatives are the conservatives who probably would have been championing black codes, during Reconstruction or thereafter, she said. So, do you ever want these people's support? You're never going to get it if you keep insulting them. So, forgive me again if conservatives pushing back on educating immigrant children, black children, children who live in poverty don't make my anxiety go up. That's what they're supposed to say. This is literally part of the oath that they're taking to be right wing. What about your oath? Didn't you take an oath too, sweetheart? That pisses me off. Anybody can pick up a book. Anybody can work with a child. Anyone. Why aren't the parents doing it? Because they don't care either. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be responsible. They throw these kids to the schools. The schools aren't doing the job. How, if reading material is available, how is it these kids aren't learning? Because you can't get your raise. The union demands include a number of climate-related provisions, including electric school buses, expanded use of heat pumps and solar panels, and the creation of climate champion positions to organize relevant initiatives and activities. The list could cost upwards of $13.9 billion that I tell you what the state of Illinois does not have, to an estimate by the Illinois Policy Institute. The union also called for the city's Board of Education to work with the city to provide more affordable housing units, with priority being given to Chicago public school families. What does any of that have to do with learning how to read? Someone explain. Someone explain it to me, how that has anything to do with a child having an interest in reading or someone working with them on how to read. And I don't have time for it. This ties in with another article. So I'm going to bring this one back up tomorrow, because her making climate-related demands ties into something else big that's happening with unions and Biden's climate initiative. This is bullshit. This is a huge lie. JD says all people. Oh, he's talking to all people. Okay, I don't want to cut into someone else's conversation there. Helter says it reminds me of the tactic Disney uses today. If the consumer's fault that this failed, not the fact that we heavily budget cut and poorly planned a movie. They literally never take responsibility. Jane says parents need to join into the development of the child. A school of any kind should be secondary. And I've heard this excuse made by parents many times. Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not good at this. Man, there are people that will help you. That I always would love to see for people to homeschool first. And by the way, Jane says her going to have the school bus next year, no driver, just electric. But in Chicago, in Illinois, electric buses are going to be a failure. They've already shut down in many states, including New York, where it gets too cold for them to run, and the buses end up getting stranded and they have to be towed because the batteries die. So that's a failure system, especially in a cold state. Maybe in a warmer climate, it wouldn't be so bad. But a child's not going to learn to read because they're riding in an electric bus instead of a gas-powered one. But there's something else big going on here. And it has to do with the unions and Biden's climate agenda. Like I said, it ties into another article, and I'm going to tie them together. But if you are with a child and you want that child to learn to read, learn to do basic math or whatever, you should be the primary source. The school is secondary if they even go to school. Okay? You are the primary. And if you don't understand something, don't neglect it, don't fake it. Learn with them. This is one of the Google commercials I hate is it Alexa? I forget. There's a commercial where the kid is asking dad a question and he's in the kitchen. And she was like, "Hey dad, what is such and such?" And he goes, "Alexa, what's this?" And Alexa tells him and he goes, "Oh, it's blah, blah." And I'm like, you bastard. Don't pretend like you knew because you asked your stupid box, your stupid AI box, and it's and you don't even know if it's right. You don't even know if that's accurate. If you don't know something, and I did this with my kids. You know what? I'm not sure. Let's go look it up together. Learn with them. You know what? They'll respect you a hell of a lot more. They'll respect you a hell of a lot more for your honesty in the long run. Stuff like that, they remember. They remember that. Anyways, with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Give you one last look at little guy here. There he is. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion if you happen to hear us somewhere else at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Always lots of cats. And this is the latest one that we've rescued. You can find us on Fistful of Radio, podcasting out of Atlanta. Say thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation.